Some loves fade quietly, others burn out with time, but obsession, that's different. For the Scorpio man, desire is not casual. Attraction is not a passing breeze. When he locks onto someone, it becomes an imprint etched into his psyche like ink under the skin. It's not just about wanting her, it's about needing to understand her, needing to possess the essence that awakens something inside of him. She becomes more than a woman, she becomes a mirror, a ghost. A haunting. Because Scorpio doesn't simply fall in love, he fixates, he binds, he absorbs, and when he loses what he cannot control, that's when the true obsession begins. This isn't surface level attraction. This is psychology at its rawest. Power, vulnerability, jealousy, memory, and the eternal loop of longing that Scorpio can't escape. So let's go inside his mind, inside the obsession, and uncover why, once Scorpio has marked someone with his energy, he never truly lets them go. Chapter 1. The Seed of Fixation. Every obsession begins as something deceptively small. A glance held a moment too long, a word that lingers in the silence after it's spoken, a detail that most would forget, but for Scorpio becomes impossible to shake. Where others skim the surface, he absorbs. He notices what isn't said, the pauses between sentences, the slight hesitation in the eyes. To Scorpio, these subtleties aren't background noise, they are clues. And once he registers them, he cannot let them go. This is how the seed is planted. It isn't the obvious that grips him, but the hidden, the locked doors, the mysteries no one else even thinks to search for. She becomes a puzzle he must solve, not because he chose to, but because something primal inside of him demands it. And here lies the difference between Scorpio and the rest of the zodiac. When curiosity strikes another, it may fade if left unanswered. But for Scorpio, unanswered questions deepen the pull. They grow roots. His fixation is watered by everything he doesn't know. What begins as attraction soon transforms into something more, a mental replay, an inner dialogue, a hunger to see beneath her surface, to know what lies beneath the mask she wears for the world. The seed of fixation doesn't bloom overnight. It germinates quietly in the soil of his mind. Days, weeks, months later, he is still replaying the same glance, the same tone, the same moment she unknowingly etched into him. And once that seed takes root, there is no pulling it out. Not for Scorpio, not for the man who doesn't just want to see her, he wants to know her. Chapter 2. The Hunter's Mind. Scorpio does not chase in the way the world expects. He does not rush, he does not ask. What he does is watch, patiently, quietly, with a focus so sharp it borders on obsession before he even admits it to himself. He notices the small things, the way her eyes flicker when she's hiding a thought, the subtle tension in her hands, the rhythm of her breathing when she's caught off guard. These are not trivialities. They are the markers of her essence, invisible to most, but seared into his perception. He does not simply see her, he maps her. Every glance, every pause, every unspoken word becomes a coordinate in a landscape only he can traverse. The hunter's mind is not cruel, it is instinctual. It is a need to know, to understand, to penetrate what others are afraid to touch. And in this pursuit, obsession begins to grow. It grows quietly, like roots winding beneath the surface, unseen, relentless. She's no longer just a woman, she's a mystery, a riddle, a lock that calls to him, whispering that he cannot leave until he finds the key. And yet, he does not act too soon. Patience is his ally, silence is his strategy. He studies, he waits, he absorbs. Every fragment of her energy that he can capture, he tucks away in a private collection of moments that no one else sees. The paradox is simple. He does not chase because he is in pursuit, but because he is tethered. Each observation, each quiet moment of attention deepens the imprint she leaves on him. He steps back, appearing detached, while inside the hunt sharpens, becoming more precise, more consuming. By the time he approaches, if he approaches at all, he has already touched her in ways invisible, memorized her essence, and wrapped her presence around himself. She may never know it, but she has become a part of him. The hunter does not merely seek her, he carries her even from afar in the dark corridors of his mind, where obsession quietly blooms. Chapter 3: Control and Vulnerability. Obsession is never just about her. There is another force at play, something buried deeper, something he cannot name, but feels in the marrow of his bones. It is the tension between power and fragility, the quiet terror of being exposed, and the desperate need to anchor what he cannot contain. He fixates because he cannot control the tremors she ignites within him. Each glance, each word, each unguarded smile reaches into a place he has long kept shuttered, and that is terrifying. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is fire, and fire burns, it illuminates, but it also consumes. So he seeks control, not over her, but over the chaos she awakens inside him. He watches, he calculates, he observes, he learns the edges of her being, the rhythm of her mind, the boundaries she does not speak aloud. In knowing her, in holding her essence close in the secret chambers of his thoughts, he hopes to steady himself against the storm of longing, fear, and desire that she awakens. And yet the irony is cruel. The more he attempts to hold, the less tangible it becomes. She is not something to possess. She is an experience, a vibration, a force that shifts with every moment. The very act of trying to control her amplifies the ache of what he cannot have. It is in this tension between closeness and distance, desire and restraint, that obsession takes root. The pull is magnetic, irresistible. The danger lies in the intensity, the raw exposure of feeling something so profound, so uncontrollable, that it threatens the walls he has spent a lifetime building. And still, he does not retreat. He cannot, because vulnerability, as much as it terrifies him, is also the only way to truly connect. She awakens something primal in him, something that refuses to be ignored. The more he grasps, the more it slips, and the more it lingers in the spaces between thought and heartbeat, memory and longing. Control and vulnerability exist together, locked in an endless dance. And in that dance, obsession blooms, quietly, fiercely, eternally. Chapter 4: The Psychology of Possession. Obsession is not just emotional. For him, it is territorial. It is silent, unseen, yet it claims space inside him in a way that nothing else can. When he connects with someone, he does more than notice her presence. He imprints on it. Her energy, her rhythm, her very being lodges inside his psyche as if it belongs to him, even if she never consents, even if she is unaware. He does not need to announce it. He does not need to act. In the quiet of his mind, there is a line drawn clear, unyielding. You are mine. Not in the ordinary sense of possession, not with words or gestures, but in the way energy settles, embeds, roots itself. Her existence becomes a pulse inside him, a territory he guards silently, an imprint that refuses to fade. This is not romantic, it is primal. It is fear wrapped in fascination, a terror of loss intertwined with an intensity of need. To him, to be replaced is unthinkable. To lose the imprint, even partially, would feel like a part of himself had been severed. It is the invisible bond that grips before action, before confession, before any surface level connection exists. And yet it is not always visible, even to himself. He may move through the world as if detached, composed, indifferent. But inside, the imprint pulses. Every thought, every memory, every fleeting energy that reminds him of her reinforces the claim he has already made. She occupies a space he will never relinquish. Obsession, in this sense, is a quiet dominion. It is an internal possession that no time, distance, or circumstance can erase. For him, it is inevitable, elemental, and eternal, the silent line that marks the woman who has entered his inner world and the territory he will never give up. Chapter 5, The Depths of Memory. Memory is not just a record for him, it is a sanctuary, a vault, a living, breathing space where every detail, every energy, every nuance of someone who touches him is preserved with painstaking clarity. For most people, moments fade. For him, they multiply, layer upon layer, echoing in ways that are invisible to the world, yet undeniable in the quiet of his mind. When he experiences someone, it is never fleeting. Every glance, every smile, every word, even the ones that pass unnoticed, are absorbed into the folds of his consciousness. He replays them, sometimes without thought, sometimes with deliberate attention, until each has taken its place in the architecture of memory he is constructing. She becomes more than a person. She becomes a constellation of moments, a map of energy that exists inside him in its purest, most unfiltered form. And the more he remembers, the more he feels. Memory is not passive, it is a pulse that keeps the obsession alive, a rhythm that sharpens with every recollection. He can recall the tilt of her head, the way her eyes catch the light, the tone of her voice when she is unaware of being heard. These are not just images, they are vibrations, patterns of energy he has internalized, storing them as though they were part of himself. Even in absence, the memory remains active. It is not a shadow, it is a presence. It shapes how he moves, how he thinks, how he reacts. It becomes a private universe where she exists perfectly, fully, eternally. The world outside may change, she may change, but within him the memory holds. It does not bend, it does not weaken, it endures, intense and unwavering. This is the paradox of obsession. It is not always about her, and it is not always about desire. It is about the way a presence imprints itself so profoundly that it alters the landscape of his psyche. The more he remembers, the more territorial he becomes over the energy she left behind. The more he holds it close, the more indelible it becomes. In his mind, memory is sacred. It is a force that cannot be erased, a pulse that cannot be silenced. It is obsession's truest home, where every encounter, every energy, every fragment of her presence lives on, untouchable, eternal, and entirely his. Chapter 6, The Obsessive Loop. Obsession is rarely linear. For him, it circles back on itself, looping endlessly, feeding its own intensity. What begins as a single spark, a memory, a glance, a feeling, becomes a cycle he cannot break. It is not that he chooses to return to it, the loop pulls him back over and over until her presence feels permanent, even when she is long gone. Psychologically, this is how obsession survives, by repetition. For him, the loop is both emotional and psychic. He replays her image, the sound of her voice, the smallest of details, until they become larger than life. The more he remembers, the stronger the imprint becomes. And with each replay, the attachment deepens. It is not only suffering, it is not only longing. The loop carries both pain and pleasure, a duality that makes it addictive. The ache of absence keeps him restless, while the sweetness of memory soothes him at the same time. He hurts, but he also feeds on the hurt because it reminds him of what was real, what touched him, what reached a part of him that little else ever has. This is why obsession becomes a cycle he cannot abandon. The loop is not about her anymore. It becomes about him, about his need to revisit the intensity she awakened, about his inability to let the energy fade. He becomes attached not just to the woman, but to the ritual of remembering her, to the rush that comes each time he lets her memory pass through him again. And so the loop continues even when logic tells him to stop, even when life moves forward, even when he outwardly appears unaffected. Inside, the replay is constant. The loop becomes the private universe where she still exists, not as she is now, but as he remembers her, perfect, unchanging, eternal. This is the essence of the obsessive loop. It is not rational, it is not fleeting, it is the endless cycle of return, the repetition that binds him, the rhythm that fuels his fixation long after the world believes he has moved on. Chapter 7, The Secret World. For the Scorpio man, obsession does not always appear on the surface. To most people, he seems controlled, unreadable, even distant. He can smile, nod, and carry on with his life as though nothing stirs beneath the surface, but this is only the mask. Behind it, he is carefully constructing a private world, a place where the obsession can breathe freely, away from judgment, away from eyes that might misunderstand. This secret world is where he revisits every memory, a glance, a word, a fleeting connection. All of it is stored there, replayed until it takes on a life of its own. To him, nothing is trivial. Every detail becomes a thread woven into the fabric of his inner story. In this private space, he does not simply remember, he magnifies. What was once fleeting becomes permanent, what was small becomes monumental. And because no one else has access, the obsession grows unchecked. He rarely speaks of it, not because it lacks importance, but because it is too important. Scorpio guards his inner world like a vault. To reveal it would feel like surrender, so instead he carries it quietly, living two realities at once, the one everyone sees and the one he retreats to when he is alone. This duality is part of what makes his obsession so enduring. By never allowing the outside world to interfere, he protects the purity of his feelings. In his mind, nothing can diminish them. The secret world becomes both a sanctuary and a trap. It gives him comfort, but it also isolates him, locking him into patterns no one else can touch. To others, it may seem like he has moved on, but Scorpio knows better. What matters to him never truly leaves. It lingers, preserved in that hidden space where time stands still. And in this way, his obsession is not just something he feels, it is something he preserves, tends to, and returns to again and again. Chapter 8, The Eternal Flame. Obsession for Scorpio is never fleeting. It does not rise like smoke and disappear into the air. It ignites, burns, and endures, a flame that lives inside of him long after the moment has passed. For the Scorpio man, this fire is not just about desire. It is about possession of the soul, about the indelible mark left when he feels someone in a way that goes beyond reason. With her, it was never casual. It couldn't be. From the very beginning, her energy struck him like flint against steel, a spark that refused to fade. He didn't just notice her, he absorbed her. Every glance, every silence, every word carried weight. She was not simply a person to him, she became an imprint, something eternal. Scorpio is a fixed water sign, and like a deep, still lake that remembers every stone ever thrown into it, he remembers her. Not just in memory, but in feeling. Her voice, her expressions, her presence ripple in him long after the moment is gone. This is why his obsession is not fragile. It does not weaken with time. If anything, it strengthens. What he absorbs, he does not release. This is not about ownership in the physical sense, it is about resonance. He feels her energy as though it has fused with his own. Her laugh, her defiance, her boundaries, they all burn like coals in his chest. Sometimes it feels like warmth, sometimes it feels like pain, but either way, he does not want it extinguished because this flame reminds him he is alive, that he can still feel beyond the surface level where most others remain. Her existence in his psyche is not passive, she is active within him, shaping his choices, coloring his moods, influencing the way he sees the world. He might carry on with his life, but beneath the surface, She is threaded through his inner monologue. When he makes decisions, when he reacts, when he dreams, her energy is there, woven into the fabric of his being. And here lies the paradox. This obsession is both torment and transformation. On one hand, he feels consumed. His thoughts circle back to her again and again, an endless loop that no distraction can sever. On the other, she becomes the catalyst for his growth. Through the intensity she awakens, he is forced to confront his own shadows, his fears of loss, his hunger for control, his capacity to feel more deeply than he sometimes dares admit. To others, this might look unhealthy. To him, it is sacred. For Scorpio, obsession is not weakness, it is proof. Proof that something pierced through his armor, proof that someone reached depths few ever touch. He does not forget this kind of connection because it is not meant to be forgotten. It is not just memory, it is transformation encoded into his soul. That is why he guards it like an eternal flame, quietly, secretly, relentlessly. Not always to act on, not always to claim, but always to keep alive. Because in a world where so much is fleeting, disposable, and surface level, she was and is the exception. And so the flame endures, hidden but blazing, controlled but unstoppable. For the Scorpio man, obsession is not simply a feeling that passes through him, it is an energy that becomes part of him. Closing, the haunting power of Scorpio obsession. And that is the paradox of the Scorpio man. His obsession is not a phase, not a fleeting crush, not a passing storm. It is the fire that burns long after the world has moved on, a fire that both torments him and keeps him alive. For those who have felt it, who have seen the intensity in his eyes or sensed the weight of his silence, you already know. To be imprinted on by a Scorpio is to be remembered in ways you cannot measure. Even if he never says it aloud, even if he hides it beneath layers of control. Because what Scorpio feels, he carries forever. So, if you've ever wondered why his energy lingers, why his presence feels impossible to erase, the answer is simple. Scorpio doesn't just love, he obsesses. And obsession, to him, is eternal.